Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Nabila Jaffer, a research analyst at the Institute of Regional Studies. Thank you all for joining us in today's webinar on 70 years of Pakistan-China relations. To formally begin, I invite the President IRS, Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, for the welcoming remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nabila. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a good afternoon to everyone. It's really a pleasure that we have a panel of such distinguished speakers to speak on the 70 years of Pakistan-China relationship. It's a relationship which has been described as strongest than the deepest ocean and highest than the highest mountain. It's a relationship which has grown since it started in 1951, and today we have China as a strategic partner. We have all these distinguished speakers who have an extensive knowledge of China. Some of them have served there for long periods of time. So I will not say much, but what I will say is that Pakistan's relations with China are strong, they have remained strong, and they will continue to remain strong in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. As our president said, that to commemorate the 70th anniversary of Pakistan-China relations, we have invited a panel of distinguished speakers who will be introduced one by the moderator. And today's panel, we have the moderator, Mr. HASSAN KHAWAR. Mr. HASSAN KHAWAR is an international development consultant, a journalist, public policy commentator, a researcher, and also holds a few honorary positions. He has been writing extensively on Cpac related issues. He is a public figure in Pakistan and has 20 plus years of national and international experience in public and private sectors. He is a former civil servant belonging to Pakistan Administrative Service. He is an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, USA, and also holds an undergraduate degree in engineering. He received executive education from Harvard University and was trained in law, public administration, and leadership from Civil Servant Academy and National School of Public Policy, Pakistan. Now I hand over further proceedings to Mr. HASSAN KHAWAR. Over to you, Mr. HASSAN.
Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to moderate this wonderful session. As Ambassador Saab said, we have a wonderful panel of very distinguished panelists, and we'll introduce them one by one, as you said. And yes, I think tomorrow marks the culmination of 7 decades of friendship. And over the 7 decades, people have used all sorts of terms like Iron Brothers, and as Ambassador Saab said, higher than Himalayas and deeper than oceans. And I think what's most fascinating is that these terms do not only exist on this side of the border, but when you go to the other side, you meet your Chinese friends, we meet our Chinese counterparts, they are equally thrilled about this partnership with Pakistan. And I think the last few years have been very important for this relationship, where Pak-China bond and the Pak-China relationship is taking a different shape. And we know that in the last 70 years, there has been military relations between the two countries. And then there is a diplomatic relations aspect. And we have recently seen the support that was lent by China when it came to Financial Action Task Force issues, the gray listing and all those things. And I think China was instrumental in supporting Pakistan's cause. But most importantly, I think it's the economic relations that today defines the new bond between Pakistan and China. And you have talked about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. That's one. We have the China-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement, the second phase of which has been signed. And now I think the need is to kind of build on that foundation. And as we are facing COVID, we know that all of us, while we go for vaccinations, in 9 out of 10 times, we get a Chinese vaccine. So we know that we are getting our vaccine supply from our Chinese friends. So I think no need to go deeper. I think before we move on to our panelists, let me structure the discussion. So I think there is the big element of the past, because it's a glorious past of 70 years, and our relationship with China has evolved over the last 7 decades. Then I think the next is that how these three aspects, diplomatic relations, military relations, economic relations, they kind of come together and form a strategic partnership between the two countries. So we also need to explore that. We also need to kind of see, okay, what is the role of Cpac in all of this? But most importantly, with these shifts happening in the world, with China adopting dual circulation approach, I think the most important question is that how should Pakistan-China relations look like in changing times? And we are going to discuss all of these aspects as we get into this session. My first panelist, esteemed panelist, is Ambassador NAGHMANA Hashmi, who has been our ambassador to China, but she has also been our ambassador to European Union, Belgium, Luxembourg, Ireland. There's a long list. So she's a very distinguished diplomat. She is from Foreign Service of Pakistan. And when the COVID pandemic hit, she was very instrumental in providing support to Pakistani students who were stuck in China in the early days of the pandemic in Wuhan. So I think she had played a great role there. And before that, she had worked in China earlier and on a number of other diplomatic assignments. So Madam NAGHMANA, I'll move to you, and I would request you to shed some light on the past. How has this relationship evolved over the last 70 years? Madam NAGHMANA.
Thank you very much for a very generous introduction. I'm just one of the members of the Pakistan Foreign Service and have just tried to do my humble bit to promote the country and the stations that I have been posted. As far as China is concerned, I am quite passionate about China because I strongly believe that our destinies are linked, and we have grown together, and there is no other alternative but to ensure that we continue to have this very strong relationship with China as we move forward in the 21st century and then in the 22nd century. Now, I have been asked to actually shed some light on the 70 years of Pakistan-China relationship. As you are all aware, that tomorrow we will mark the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. Both Pakistan and China Pakistan was established in 1947, and the new China was established in 1949. And Pakistan, both of these countries were new countries. Both of them were underdeveloped. Both of them had gone through years and decades of struggle to achieve new China and an independent Pakistan. Both the countries in their own way have large populations, and while we have a long history of people-to-people contact and a long history of monks coming from China to learn Buddhism in our part of the world, but still, we were fundamentally quite different. China was a communist country. Pakistan was founded on the ideology of Islam. So we were a Muslim country. But still, very early after the establishment of New China, our leaders of that time realized how important it was to have a relationship and a contact with China. Therefore, we were the first Muslim country to recognize the People's Republic of China, and we sent a delegation in 1950 to participate in their celebrations. We were actually the only third non-communist country to recognize China. After this initial contact, we opened our mission in May 1951, and the credentials were presented by our first ambassador there on the 21st of May. So tomorrow we mark the 70th anniversary of the establishment of these diplomatic relations. But we see that the first few years were years of wait and see, and were years of consolidation, because China was also involved with its own settling down, and Pakistan, of course, was also still in very nascent stages. So till about 1955, there was no substantive movement forward in the establishment or in the furtherance of the diplomatic relations. But it was the beginning, actually, was the historic visit of the Vice President of China, Madame Sung, who led a delegation in 1955 and paved the way for the establishment of a substantive relationship with China. This was immediately reciprocated from our side by the visit to China of Mr. Suharwardy, our Prime Minister at the time. And that actually formed the initial basis of the relationship. But it was only in about 1963 when we finalized our border agreement with China that provided a very strong foundation on which we started to build a long-term relationship. This is primarily because when we offered to settle the borders with China, the Chinese leadership wrote to us and asked how would we like to settle this dispute. And the then Foreign Minister, Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, wrote back giving 3 points set on the basis of international law and the prevailing practice for such negotiations on the basis of mutual trust and mutual accommodation. And this actually positive and friendly response of Pakistan was in sharp contrast to the problems that China was having with India with regard to the settlement of its border with India. And we are all very well aware that the problem with India still continues. In fact, it is the only country now left with which China has a border dispute, a land border dispute, and Pakistan has become the only, the friendliest country in the region, which has never actually had any dispute or any problem on its border. And I think that was the beginning of our understanding, and the historic agreement was then signed by Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto on his visit to China in 1963. And after that, we have seen that our relationship took an upward trajectory, and we have actually never looked back. So the 70 years, as we mark the 70 years of our establishment of diplomatic relations, it provides us a very good opportunity to see what has gone into building this strong foundation. And I strongly feel that it was the wisdom, the sagacity, the far-sightedness of the leaders of both the countries at that time to build this very strong foundation. Although China was non-aligned, we were very firmly aligned because of our membership of C2 and CENTO with the West. But still, the trust, the mutual understanding, and the mutual vision of the future that we had sort of established helped us to only go forward. And just after the signing of the border agreement, we see that Pakistan International Airlines became the first non-communist airline to start its flight operations to Beijing, and generations of our Chinese friends passed through Karachi to reach the rest of the world. In fact, Karachi became their first introduction to the outside world. Similarly, using our very good relations at the time with the USA, we also paved the way for USA to get in touch with the Chinese, and we created that bridge that brought the two countries together, and that actually changed the entire world politics after that. And a lot of people would remember that it was Pakistan that helped China become and take its rightful place at the United Nations. And we also helped China in a lot of other ways in its initial days. But throughout our 70 years, we see that the relationship is studded with events, with examples of how the two countries have stood by each other in good times and in bad times. In fact, this relationship has now become a model of interstate relationship in the world, irrespective of the political changes in the two countries, irrespective of the political changes in the region and in the world. The only stable factor that remains is the Pakistan-China strategic cooperative partnership. We started by calling each other good neighbors, good friends. We called the relationship higher than the mountains and deeper than the deepest oceans and sweeter than honey. But going beyond those objectives and those feelings, today, Pakistan and China are truly strategic partners. One very important factor which I think led to furthering of this strong relationship was the strategic decision and vision of the leaders of that time to construct the Karakoram Highway. The concept of connectivity, the concept of the two countries coming together was actually established with the construction of the Karakoram Highway. The Chinese leadership always plans decades and centuries in advance, and that's one of their hallmarks of their success as well. So very early, they realized the importance of connectivity, and particularly connectivity with Pakistan. They had their own calendar of development. They developed their eastern and western, eastern and southern sectors first, and then went to the central provinces, and the last development plan was for the western provinces which border with Pakistan. So therefore, in the early 2000s, when they decided to invest about $100 billion in the development of the western provinces, that the concept of operationalizing this connectivity was put into action. The idea was to sort of link the development of Pakistan with the development of the northwestern provinces of China. We have seen that, this is, you can talk for so long and go through all the little details, but because of the paucity of time, there's few things that I would like to mention, because one can't really narrate the history of 70 years in in 10 minutes. But we have seen that throughout, particularly after the 1965 war, China ensured that we become self-sufficient, and therefore the construction of the heavy mechanical complex in Texla, the heavy forge factory in Vahkent, the start of the Chashma nuclear power plants, 4 of which are now operational, and the construction of the Kamra and aeronautical complex. So if you look at Pakistan today, the landscape from north to south is studded with landmarks of Pakistan-China friendship and cooperation. The strongest of it, of course, is now Cpac, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is also a 2-part project. About $25 billion have already been invested in the first phase, which comprised of infrastructure, 30%, and about 60% spent on energy projects, because without sufficient energy, it was not possible for Pakistan to kickstart its industries and to be competitive. Energy is extremely important. And now with this first phase almost near completion, the second phase has started, which involves the setting up of special economic zones. And this, in fact, is one of the most important phases of Cpac. This is the phase that will actually deliver the dream of socio-economic development of Pakistan and provide jobs and opportunities for the Pakistani youth across the country. And it will not only be beneficial for Pakistan and China, but also would be beneficial for the region, particularly with Afghanistan settling down now. A dream of opening up and starting trade and reaching the Central Asian states will hopefully now become a reality. So after we constructed the Gwadar port, when China became a little economically stable and had the foreign exchange to spare, that we started first with the upgradation of the Karakoram Highway in the early 2000s, 2003 and 4, and we turned it into an all-weather highway. And along with that, in 2001, we know when Premier Jurongji came to Pakistan, and we took that historic decision of making a deep sea port at Gwadar, which was after completion, we went for extra dredging, so that now it is truly a deep sea port that can harbor larger ships, and a very large airport is also now being built in Gwadar. So completing that concept of connectivity and making Pakistan the hub for trade, not only to Afghanistan and Central Asian states, but also to Middle East, Africa, and Europe, as this would eventually provide the shortest route for trade, both way trade for China. Then we have seen that in all difficult times and under all sorts of pressures, both in China and Pakistan, we have stood steadfast with each other, whether it was floods, whether it was earthquakes, or now more recently, we have the example of COVID. Before that, we had the examples of SARS, which luckily didn't go beyond the Chinese border, but I was also present in China in that period as the Deputy Head of Mission. So I have seen the cooperation that went in dealing with SARS. And I was also witness to the friendship of the Chinese people and the Chinese government and organizations when Pakistan was hit by that catastrophic earthquake of 2005. And that is the response of the Chinese ordinary people is what actually defines this relationship. We had people literally walking into this from the streets into the embassy and opening their wallets for our people, with Chinese sending their medical teams, and they almost built an air bridge between China and Pakistan to ensure that we get out of the difficulty. Similarly, when China was hit with floods and earthquakes, Pakistan was one of the first countries to help in whatever way possible. But I feel that one of the most difficult tests and the most recent tests of not only China's political system, its governance, its health system, and Pakistan-China friendship was COVID. Because when COVID erupted in China, Pakistan offered all it had. Very little, but whatever it had, it offered it to China and sent it to China to help it fight the COVID vaccine, COVID virus. And then we also made a very difficult, politically very difficult decision, but a very apt decision not to evacuate our students and citizens from China. This was at a time when the entire world, particularly the Western world and our neighbors in South Asia and Southeast Asia were trying to stigmatize China, trying to alienate China. They thought that China was facing a very difficult situation. So this was the time to, take advantage of China and isolate it internationally, that we stood firmly with China. And we not only decided not to evacuate because our students, because we had complete trust and faith in the ability of our Chinese friends to protect our students and to look after them and to overcome the virus. And as promised by Xi Jinping, that they would treat our students and our expatriates like their own, I feel very happy and very proud to announce that, or to inform you, that Pakistan did not lose a single soul to COVID in China, nor did any cases of virus were imported from China to Pakistan. We not only did that to show our solidarity. Our president visited China, one of the only two presidents to visit, the Mongolian president, the Pakistani president. We went to China to show that this is a relationship which is like no other, that this is a relationship that has stood the test of time. This is a relationship that has served both the countries extremely well in all aspects of our relationship, whether it's political, strategic, economic, trade, education, science and technology, and now in agriculture and other areas. But what needs still to be done is to focus more on people-to-people contact. We now have about 32,000 students studying in various institutions in China. We need to have, if not more, at least an equal number of Chinese students studying here in Pakistan. And we need to have more linkages with think tanks, with the media, and cultural and tourism activities need to be really enhanced to ensure that the people of the two countries understand each other as well as the governments and the political institutions and the strategic institutions of the two countries understand. It is extremely important to make the people of the two countries understand the strategic and the economic and the political strength and importance of this relationship. Therefore, I feel that the 70th anniversary provides us a very good opportunity to very clearly come out and try and educate our people so that our detractors and the China skeptics and the propaganda of the West against China gets diluted. And we should also now try to have a framework vision where we have a long-term strategy for this relationship, not only to further prosper and bloom in the 21st century, but also to successfully enter the 22nd century, because this is the only relationship which is not transactional for Pakistan. This is the only relationship that has gone from strength to strength and maintained its upward trajectory for over 70 years. So it is, I think, incumbent on all the people of Pakistan, especially those who've been involved with China or think tanks, to ensure that we achieve this. Long live Pakistan-China friendship.
Thank you so much. Madam, you said that it's very difficult to narrate the 70 years history in 10 minutes, but I must commend you that you have indeed walked us through this fascinating journey. And I think what we realize is that the friendship we see today is a result of a number of smaller steps, starting all the way, as you said, figuring out the border agreements, then starting the flight operations, then gradually travel expanding, then extending that to infrastructure and building Karakoram Highway, building military complexes, and then Chinese help through floods, earthquakes, and pandemics. I think it's a fascinating tale of how the two countries have come together. And I think you rightly said that it can very well be a model of interstate relationship, irrespective of change in political governments and change in priorities. So thank you so much, madam. I also see that we are joined by Senator Moshid Hussain Sayyid. But Senator Saab, before I move on to you, one of our esteemed panelists will unfortunately have to leave us a little early. So I'll invite him to come in, Mr. Hassan Daud Bhatt, my namesake. And Hassan Saab is someone who has been the face of Cpac for a very long time. He was the project director for Cpac Project, and he has been involved in the Cpac long-term plan, the Gwadar master plan, and a number of other initiatives. And right now, he is the head of KP Board of Investment and Trade, but he's often seen visiting the offices of Cpac Authority, where I'm told he's unofficially consulted almost every day. So Hassan Saab, with that, I invite you, and if you can shed some light on this new facet of Pakistan-China friendship, which is the economic facet, which is about China-Pakistan economic corridor. Where are we on Cpac and where are we going? Hassan Daud Bhatt Saab.
Assalamu alaikum, Hassan, and assalamu alaikum to all the esteemed panelists. I think all who've been involved, who have actually contributed, are in this panel, from Senator Saab to Ma'am NAGHMANA and also to Investor Khalid. So I think I will not talk too much about the importance and how Cpac would transform. I would rather show a short presentation succinctly on what is the state of Cpac and how is it moving forward in next 5 years. And based on that, perhaps Senator Saab and the speakers will follow, perhaps would shed light on how would this grow diplomatically and also in terms of regional integration. Hassan, can you hear me well, sir?
Ji, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hassan Saab, is the presentation visible?
Visible, absolutely.
So based on what I said, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the times are changing and the world is transforming, and Asia is becoming the epicenter of this 21st century transformation. And economic power and economic decision making is shifting from west to east, with China remains the center point and reason for relevance. And even if you look at ASEAN, most countries who are economically relevant are those which are doing trade with China and have huge, huge desire to improve their trade through various FDI policies. And if you look around, and we were doing long-term plan and we studied Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, we saw all their policies were based on aggressive FDI, attracting from China and creating that pull factor. We know that this BRI would reduce time, and I will not discuss too much because this is something which is now top of the town and everybody is clear about this. But we are looking at BRI, which pillars around policies for unimpeded trade. We look at BRI, which in terms of health, Silk Road is also supporting developing countries like Pakistan. We are also looking at BRI as an initiative which has 56 economic zones around in 20 countries with 9 in Pakistan, and we'll talk about that. But I have written a lot about this, and I have always been saying that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is the buckle of the belt. And I'm sure we all know that the belt is the Belt and Road Initiative. I've always been saying that, and I have reasons to believe in this. So as Prime Minister Imran Khan, during his visit to China, and I was lucky to be part of both his visits, he said that China is a great opportunity for Pakistan, and it connects us to China, which is one of the greatest markets. So leadership on both sides is committed towards not just CPEC, but BRI as a large thing, and overall regional integration and trade and economic ties, which is actually the reason for having Belt and Road Initiative, and in return bringing in socio-economic empowerment to areas which were originally less developed. Well, talking about CPAC project, ladies and gentlemen, in 2018, the scope of CPAC was increased from trade and market access, industrial development and global value chains, socio-economic development, agriculture modernization, Gwadar development to Gwadar oil city and blue economy, and regional connectivity and third-party participation, which is being led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And all this was around economic development, socio-economic empowerment, connecting different parts of Pakistan with trade corridors of the region. For those who've seen the long-term plan and those who've seen the monographic study, I would also just like to highlight an important fact that the age of both Belt and Road Initiative and CPAC are similar. CPAC started in 2013, and President Xi Jinping, during his visit to Central Asian Republic, announced his plan for Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. Similarly, in 2015, the vision for Belt and Road Initiative, the long-term vision for Belt and Road Initiative was given. And Pakistan at that time, during the 5th Joint Working Group, worked on the monographic study of CPAC, which worked on various roads, nodes, railway structure, highways, airports, and economic growth, and how trade in terms of numbers would grow using different border posts and maritime routes. So the first target that was set in 2013, and this is highlighted in the long-term plan made in 2017, was till 2020 was the period of market cultivation, and we are supposed to remove all bottlenecks. And I'm saying are because I'm using present tense because of various factors, and I'll speak about them in the industrial cooperation phase. Socio-economic development through that, and Velia Thakot, Multan Sakkar Highway were completed slightly ahead of time, despite at the later part there was COVID, but still they were completed in time, and now you can enjoy the traffic there. And the second target was period of market expansion and development, and in this we were supposed to have 9 special economic zone, and perhaps this is one area where we have lagged behind, and perhaps by about 2 to 3 years. And I think Hassan KHAWAR, when he'll speak, he might speak about the reasons on these. But last but not the least is till 2030, which is the period of maturity. Should have our ML1 by that time if it's an 80 project, and I'll later be speaking about this. So what I would like to highlight here is that once targets are given, once there is clear direction, all stakeholders, including bureaucracy, military agencies, academia, think tank, have clear idea how CPAC would move. And this I'm talking about Pakistan. And therefore, we were able to actually work on and articulate plans and master plans according to this vision. Ladies and gentlemen, we have seen various figures, and I read from 70 billion to somewhere around 100 billion US dollars spoken about in various, depending on who's writing and from where he's writing. But these are the actual figures. The overall project as we speak is around 49.6 billion US dollars, and this includes the projects in which we have done MOUs, and here ML1 has been indicated at 8.2, which is being discussed now, but overall Pakistan side is working on about 6.8 billion and the Chinese side. So if I've kept an average figure here. So this is where we are, and these are the projects. On top are the ones which have been completed, the ones that are under implementation, and those which are in pipeline. We have gone, like perhaps Den Shopping would say, crossing the river, touching each pebble. And we've had several interaction, and there is a reason for me to highlight this. This actually highlights the hard work that has been done. I remember 16 line ministries, security agencies, different bodies and organizations working, and we've come this far to actually have CPAC to where it is, and the 10th JCC is scheduled. It was scheduled in January, but now perhaps it could happen this because of COVID and other reasons. This is the CPAC, because I've kept this because this is one of the FAQs which is asked, and as you can see, the percentage of Pakistanis in transport infrastructure is much more, and in energy is little less. But as projects are being commissioned, number of Chinese is also number of Pakistanis engineers coming back from China is growing, and they've been employed on CPAC. On energy, ladies and gentlemen, the original MOU speaks about 17,000 megawatt. Out of this, 11,000 were priority, and about 2,500 are actively promoted. We still have balanced capacity. There was discussion about various projects to be included in this, but then we still have this balanced capacity available at this point. And I think this is one of the marvels of CPAC, where third block 2, there's a long queue for investors in third block 1 now also. But this is where we have, and we have achieved COD in 2019. And I believe, environmentalists might not like what I'm saying, but this inshallah will be one of the energy corridors of CPAC, and this would actually bring cheaper energy using our indigenous sources, and perhaps bringing us in par in terms of the cost of doing projects to our competitors. The infrastructure projects, ladies and gentlemen, because I will quickly skip them, both the projects have been completed and have been completed 6 months ahead of time. Coming to railway, ladies and gentlemen, the entire scope starts from ML1 to ML2 and ML3. But ML1 project is in the final stages of discussion, and hopefully the financial agreement would happen soon. We are expecting some milestone to be achieved in terms of this. Then coming over to Gwadar, ladies and gentlemen, the master planning is underway. The original master plan to be in which I was also part of the entire team. That was completed as per the grant project, as a grant project. But now, in terms of regulatory framework, the Balochistan government is working on this, and we are trying to leverage the natural endowment we have in terms of the vast domestic demand of chemicals, oils, and looking at establishment of an oil city in Gwadar, and then perhaps utilizing the aquaculture within this, besides the maritime connectivity, which I'm sure eminent speakers will speak about. So these are the Gwadar projects, and the facilitation center on the top left was completed in 6 months. The East Bay Expressway, inshallah, will be completed this year, perhaps in next 2 months, and perhaps that's a 6-lane highway and would connect the port. The port development plan has also been prepared, and from 3.5 berths, I would say, it was going to be about 35 berths, and with a depth of around 14 meter, which is one of the that would place us amongst the biggest port or deep sea port. So the projects, as you can see, were mostly grant or interest-free loans, and so I would use this opportunity to thank the Chinese government, and this demonstrates the good that Pakistan has in China, and in terms of the support, especially in vocational hospital. In terms of Gwadar master plan, ladies and gentlemen, it is about having a safe, prosperous environment and livable port city. The picture, as you can see, is of Shenzhen, because the master plan was based on Shenzhen development, and it was done in 3 parts, starting from defining the vision and from the existing Gwadar city to looking at the demands and estimate population growth, and from there working on the master plan. We also worked on the development path in terms of the population growth, both from till 2025, then 35, and then going all the way to 50. Why I'm projecting this information is the level of details that were put in for preparing this master plan in terms. And also then we looked at various sectors, and in terms of the sectoral trends that were there, I've just highlighted a few, starting from aqua, marine and fishery industry, and then heavy industry, light industry. What should be our short-term goal in terms of improving the industrial development, moving towards a cluster approach, and then promoting a comprehensive industrial port city growth. So this is how it is. I am happy to flash the slide of the Gwadar airport. This is beautiful, and the tarmacs will be completed, and work has started. Again, there was a small lag because of the COVID, and now project is again back on track, and Chinese teams are working. But this is the design of the Gwadar airport. This is Gwadar master plan, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it is. This would again be discussed in terms of the regulatory framework, but as you can see, it caters for different type of industries. It caters for the downtown city, various residential, airport, and then oil city as it comes in the future. I would also like to dispel the discussion about Gwadar versus Hambantota, and this is important because nowhere these two projects are similar. Nowhere there is, except for both are located at important strategic locations. Besides that, there's no similarity between the two. And I did a small research on media reports about Hambantota, and I was surprised to see that Pakistanis have written more than Sri Lankans on Hambantota and about its project. So I think the level of discussion perhaps has to be based on data, not on story. So coming to industrial cooperation, because that's extremely important for us. We are moving from G2G to B2B. Hassan, please, could you raise your hand when I'm left with 1 minute, or if I have already passed my.
Sorry, क्या question था Hassan sir?
मैं कह रहा था sir, when I'm left with 1 minute, just raise a hand or something.
So now would be the time to raise the hand.
Okay. So from G to G, we are moving towards B to B, and this would not be as easy as we think, because when it comes to business, the level of interaction would be interesting. The government is putting up policies. We are looking at pillar industries which can attract Chinese investment. We are creating the pull factor which can, enabling environment which can create that pull factor for Chinese investment to come. We in Rashakai, we've done some work, and I see Chinese interest growing as we speak. We are working on substitution, export-led industries. We are looking at joint ventures in various industries, from engineering to light manufacturing to textile to other areas which are consumer. I, in my interaction, believe that Chinese investment is looking at cheap labor. They are looking at huge consumer market, and they are also looking at this stage, also looking at our natural resources for to be utilized in the industries. But perhaps in next stage, they would also seek efficiency, and when they look at e-commerce. So these are the 9 economic zones. Rashakai is the one that, as CISA, I am responsible for. We are trying to put up incentives that are efficient, performance-based, harmonized with national investment policies, non-discriminatory, backloaded, especially in terms of land, and regionally competitive. I'll skip Rashakai because perhaps because of the paucity of time, but we are getting there in terms of reaching of the socioeconomic development, ladies and gentlemen. This would be third JCC in which socioeconomic projects would be done. 3 billion grant was 1 billion grant over 3 years was given by Chinese government. But I think there is a synergy in terms of how both governments are looking at socio-economic development, because the Prime Minister Imran Khan's agenda was also President Xi Jinping agenda in terms of poverty alleviation is similar, and perhaps we can learn a lot from Chinese experience. In agriculture, ladies and gentlemen, we have established a joint working group. We're looking at co-marketing, co-branding in terms of extreme. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, I see Chinese investment coming in red chilies, and also we are working with Chinese in DI Khan for corporate farming and also cooperate farming, both together, and perhaps that is an area. We're looking at livestock disease-free zone. So lastly, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of next 5 years to 7 years, I think we should be able to develop SCZs to a certain level, depending on where they are. But I think we should also work along with the 3 priority. We should work on AJK, GB, and below. Size of land is there less, and perhaps we can bring tailor-made industry there. We in terms of agriculture, we should be able to establish foot and mouth disease-free zone and work on productivity enhancement. In terms of regional connectivity and third-party participation, this is a key area. Once the connectivity, all-weather connectivity from KKH is ensured, this would, and once the railway lines are set, ML1 is there, we should have at least 30% increase in our trade from where it is now. We want to invigorate blue economy, and this is the priority area of the government, and also look at Gwadar as a standalone development project under the master plan. And lastly, set up demonstration villages in the socio-economic development as per the joint action plan. We work on pilot projects on education, poverty alleviation, water supply. We will not go into that detail. And as Ma'am NAGHMANA said, one of the deliverables that has been set is to increase scholarship to 30,000 Pakistanis to China. So with this is the current state. There are few challenges we have in terms of capacity building, in terms of ensuring one-stop shop. We had a 2-day seminar yesterday, and a lot of discussion around policy continuity, around one-stop shop, and around looking at what actually Pakistan needs in terms of industry, and then perhaps crafting incentives around that. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Hassan, and my apologies, Senator Saab sir, for putting my presentation before you, sir. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Hassan Saab, and thank you so much for giving us a very, very detailed introduction of Cpac. What does it constitute, and what are the priorities for future? Before I move on to our keynote speaker, I would request our participants to please post their questions in the chat box, and we'll take up your questions once we go through the full panelists. So our next panelist is also our keynote speaker, who does not need an introduction. Nevertheless, I'll still try to introduce him, is Senator MUSHAHID Sayyid Saab, who is the chairman of Senate's Foreign Affairs Committee. He's a journalist, a geostrategist, a politician, an avid writer and a reader, and also a remarkable speaker. He went to the US. So, sir, I think it's good to still go through the background, because I think it's
that's fine. I think it's too...
It's fascinating. So Moshid Saab became the youngest editor at the age of 29 of Muslim, and he was named as prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International. I think that's remarkable. So, sir, before you joined, actually, we were discussing that when you look at Pakistan and China relations, there is a very rich history, but these are changing times. And it's one part of it is that Cpac has come to a stage where we are talking about the second phase. Then Pakistan is facing internal economic challenges, the IMF program, and there are other impediments. And then there are changes on the global chessboard between US and China. And most importantly, China is now also talking about its dual circulation approach, which seems like a big shift. And then we also see in East Asia, we see the emergence of regional comprehensive economic partnership. So these are interesting times. And I would request you to shed some light on how do you see Pakistan-China relationship evolving in this changing environment? Senator Saab.
Thank you very much. And Hassan KHAWAR Saab forgot to mention that his grandfather and my father were class fellows and neighbors in Muslim town Lahore, and very old friends. Dr. Abdul Sam Khurshid Saab was a very eminent intellectual, and he was also teacher of my sister also. So we go back a long way. And good to see you, KHAWAR Saab. And Ambassador Masoud is here, Salahuddin Saab is here, and of course the president of IRS is here, Nadeem Saab, and NAGHMANA Sahiba ne badi speech ki, and DAUD Saab ne bhi. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I was at an earlier assignment on Palestine, so I had to be there. And NAGHMANA was a person who rose to the occasion. She led from the front in one of the most difficult moments in our relationship, not a bilateral relationship, but the coronavirus pandemic. And I think that the decision she took, I know I was inundated with phone calls by students and their parents that please bring back our students. I said, I've talked to NAGHMANA Hashmi Sahiba. She's a very able and one of the best and the brightest in the foreign service. They are safe. Kuch nahi hota unko. And that was a correct decision. And we didn't get any COVID cases from China. We got it from other sources, but not from China. And nobody from Pakistan was affected by COVID in China. So I think the ambassador and our able team led very well. Thank you so much. And I also want to compliment the Foreign Service, because it's fashionable to bash the Foreign Service just like that. I said recently at a seminar, I spoke where Dr. Kissinger was there also on 50 years of Pakistan playing a role in Dr. Kissinger's secret visit to Beijing. And there were only 3 people who managed it from the Pakistani side. President Yahya Khan, Foreign Secretary Sultan Muhammad Khan, and our ambassador in Washington, D.C., Agha Hilali Saab. 2 foreign service officers and 1 military man. No ISI, no other bureaucrat. So you can see that how it was one of the most important turning points in global politics 50 years ago. And Pakistan played a role. So I think we have the human resource to deliver, and they have delivered, and Cpac is standing on its legs. It was started by Masood Khalid Saab, and so we must give the appreciation where it's due. Now, coming to your question, I think that if you see the language used by the Chinese side and the Pakistani sides, there's a reference to core interests, that we protect each other's core interests. And I think that is very, very key. And those core interests are now at the centerpiece. Yes, it's a very close relationship. When I went to China as a teenager, I was 16 or 17 years old. And as a young Maoist with a red book and a Mao badge and a cap, it was a cultural revolution and it was a world new opening up. And I thought, oh, China is so backward. China is so less developed as compared to Pakistan. I'm talking about 45 years ago. And it was the China of Chairman Mao and Premier Zhou Enlai. And we have seen the transformation of China in the subsequent visits I had, about 90 or 100 or so. So in this context, it's interesting how the relationship becomes so relevant even in this time. And this was a question asked to me by Saabzada Yaqub Khan Saab 10 years ago. We had a very long conversation. I knew him very well because he was ambassador in Washington and I was a student then. Since then, and then as editor of the Muslim Bee, we became very close friends. And I used to meet him for lunch every month. And it was off the record. And I always kept my confidence. So he asked me that, what is special about the Pakistan-China relationship? I think that complementarity of interests is at the core. And of course, people to people, other relationships, we stand by each other and we have helped each other, and NAGHMANA explained it very well. But now when we come to this current situation, it's so interesting. Look at the three key elements which are happening, which again reinforce this relationship. We are talking of geoeconomics. We are talking of being the hub of regional connectivity. Cpac is a godsend. It came in 2013 when no country was willing to invest in Pakistan, neither any Muslim country or Western country. China gave us a vote of confidence in the future of Pakistan and its people. And I know there were so many naysayers. I remember a lot of economists telling me, oh, yeah, possible in Pakistan, we cannot do it. We only do 1 or 2 big projects a year. Now with $25 billion of investment, 75,000 Pakistanis getting gainful employment, 28,000 Pakistani students at the peak in China studying. So you can see that it's already a success story. So when we talk of our new role as the hub of regional connectivity, we are connecting the region. Cpac is at the center piece of this development. And already you can see Gwadar port is serving not just Pakistan-China relations, but also Afghanistan, Afghan transit trade, Uzbekistan now. And Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan have already said that they want to be part of this process using Gwadar port. So that is number one. So our role, which we want in the coming years as the hub of regional connectivity, Cpac is that mechanism which will take us forward. Secondly, the India factor. One reason why India did the U-turn in December and suddenly said to Pakistan, we want to talk, is because of China. May 2020 and January 2021, 2 major clashes between the Chinese and the Indian groups. And China has helped by giving a thrashing to India, by teaching them a lesson, as they say, has given us strategic space, a breather. Because India, for the first time, felt that we are going to face militarily, politically, and diplomatically a two-front scenario. On the one side, we have Pakistan, the other side, China. So again, it was China that has been there. And the third element, as you know, despite the change of administration in USA, the policy towards China has become more strident. On 15th of April, in the US Congress, the so-called, it's called the Strategic Competition Act was presented. If that is accepted, that will be a recipe for a new Cold War. And according to that act, $570 million will be allocated every year for media, basically to malign China. And this act is specific to China. Please read the contents, it's on the internet. It is currently being debated in the Senate. And they want to make it a law that about vis-a-vis China. And they also has mentioned that those countries which have close relations to China, we should try to tell them about this Chinese, what they call debt trap. But interestingly, I was reading an article in The Atlantic, which is a very prominent American publication, monthly. on 6th of February 2021. Please read that article. I think it's the definitive article on the Chinese investments, written by two American professors, because DAUD Saab mentioned Hambantota, the port in Sri Lanka. And he was right. There's no comparison with Gwadar, because Hambantota was built politically, because it is in the constituency of Prime Minister Rajapakse. Gwadar has been an economic necessity of Pakistan, and it's been long-standing for the last 30 years. But even on Hambantota, the article says it's called The Myth of the Chinese Debt Trap. The Atlantic, two American professors, February 6, 2021. It's definitive article on that. So you can see that with this looming Cold War, America has already chosen India as their partner to take on China, and they are going to build up India militarily. And even the statement they've made on strategic partnership, which was issued in February, they've talked that we have to build up the Indian military and build up India politically. And they mentioned also, of course, Bangladesh and Nepal, but Pakistan is nowhere in the reckoning. And that's why you can see a certain attitude of coolness from the Biden administration towards Pakistan. So already the regional and the global scenario is favoring a very close relationship between Pakistan and China because of mutuality of interests that demand that closeness. At a broader level, China provides us diplomatic, what I call diplomatic air cover, whether it's the UN Security Council. We went to the UN Security Council 3 times in the last 2 years because of China. Whether it's FATF, whether it's the Nuclear Suppliers Group, whether it's the G20, it is China which is Pakistan's defender, our voice. And for China also, their southern soft underbelly, Xinjiang, Tibet, Pakistan provides them a certain shield, a certain coverage, because you have Dalai Lama sitting there in India, separatism. You have separatists from Xinjiang sitting in Afghanistan under the watchful eyes of the Americans. It's only Pakistan which is there as a good friend of China. So the mutuality of interests, they both need each other, they both stand by each other, and protect each other's core interests. I think this is the relationship that will see us through. And I'm so glad that in Cpac now, this people-to-people component is very important. After all, people like me, we learned about China through their publications, through Radio Peking, through Peking Review, through China Reconstructs, through the Red Book of Chairman Mao. So I think that this is also extremely important in the current times. And that's why our think tank, the Pakistan-China Institute, has been pushing forward the people-to-people component to reinforce the mutuality of interest and the commonality of values and worldviews that is at the heart of the Pakistan-China strategic partnership as Iron Brothers for so long. Thank you very much. I think I've tried to answer your question, Hassan Khabar Saab, to some extent, and what is it that will take us through in the next few years. And already you can see that those elements are very much in place.
Sir, thank you so much. You have indeed answered beautifully, and I think you have provided us the anchors. And I think if we have strong anchors, we know that the ship is likely to sail well. So thank you so much. Very enlightening. Now our last panelist is Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab. And before I invite him, I would again urge you to keep on flowing in questions. We already have some questions, and we'll take them after Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab. Now, Ambassador Masood Saab has been the longest serving ambassador of Pakistan to China. And as Senator Saab said, that he was there when Cpac was conceived, designed, launched. So he has a big role to play there. He is also a very eminent professional from Foreign Service of Pakistan, and he has been our ambassador in South Korea and Malaysia. And before that, he was also the deputy permanent representative in Pakistan's permanent mission to the UN. And after that, he also headed the Asia Pacific desk in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So Ambassador Masood Saab, over to you. And I think your job is the hardest, because you have to bring together all the previous pieces of conversations, the history, the economy, and the anchors that Senator Saab has talked about, and kind of paint a picture that what should be the roadmap for strengthening the strategic partnership between Pakistan and China. Thank you, Ambassador Saab.
Assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for your very kind words. And yes, this is my dilemma that the preceding speakers who have been so ably and eloquently, put forward their point of view as to how they see Pakistan-China relations, and I have really benefited from their insight. There's not much to say, but nevertheless, I'll go over this thing and try to see how much justice can I do now to elaborate my point of view. Ambassador NAGHMANA traced the historical evolution of Pakistan-China relations. I would like to say that both these countries were, in their infancy in 1949, 1947, and we were grappling with our own problems. We had this partition thing and challenges related to partition, and China was, emerging from this civil war and entirely new situation. So there was hardly any time to sort of make a robust beginning, but Pakistan played wisely, Pakistan acted wisely, and we recognized China in 1950, and we were the first Muslim country to do so. So that is very much there in the Chinese memory and Chinese psyche. Then came the Korean War, 1950, and China got embroiled in that. And we were pressurized by the Americans to send a military contingent, but we decided not to do so. Had we taken that decision and come under US pressure, I'm flagging these anecdotes and these historical events, which are important to understand the context of Pakistan-China relations as they exist now, because this is how the evolution took place. So Pakistan did not oblige Americans, and which was appreciated by the Chinese. And before that, there was the San Francisco Conference on the Peace Treaty with Japan, and China was not invited. And Pakistan's Foreign Minister, Sir Zafarullah Khan, raised an objection, and he emphasized that China should have been there. So these two events in the very beginning of our relationship in 1950 and 51 sort of helped develop that understanding at the initial phase in China about Pakistan. These were goodwill gestures. And then, we have heard about the Bandung Conference. I can't see anyone. Sorry. You are hearing me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We are hearing you well. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, fine. Then comes the Bandung Conference, and that is where the two leaders, Premier Chon Lai and Prime Minister Bogra, it was an exercise in assessment, because Pakistan had joined the Western Alliance. China was the torchbearer of communism. Two divergent policy approaches. So Chon Lai met Mr. Bogra twice, and in their public statements later, both of them reassured each other that they were not working at cross purposes, that they were Pakistan's, membership of the Western Alliance was not against China. And Chon Lai expressed his satisfaction over that assurance. And then we see that in a matter of few months, Prime Minister Sohalwadi goes to China, the first ever visit. He met Chon Lai twice, he met Chairman Mao Zedong, and then barely 2 months later, Chon Lai came to Pakistan and he was given a rousing reception. He stayed here for, I think, 10 days. But before that, another important fact which I want to highlight, look at the sagacity and the wisdom of the Chinese leadership. It's amazing. More you study about it, more you learn that really, how Chinese diplomacy and Chinese policies work. Now, In 1950, when Pakistan recognized People's Republic of China, it is reported that Chairman Mao Zedong sent instructions in his own handwritings to his foreign ministry to strengthen relations with Pakistan. This is 1950, 1951. Okay. Then when General Geng Biao, who was the second ambassador, Chinese ambassador to Pakistan, he was called from Sweden to go to Pakistan. Chairman Mao meets him and tells him that, look, Pakistan is a very important neighbor, a very important friendly country to China. So you please go, take up the assignment there and strengthen and improve relations with Pakistan. So this is the mindset which was prevailing at that time as far as Chinese leadership is concerned. Then after Pakistan, 1956, Chou En-lai visits India. And Prime Minister Nehru asks him, requests him to visit Srinagar. Premier Chou En-lai declined the invitation. Nehru was apparently quite insistent that Chou En-lai visits Srinagar. But keeping in mind the sensitivity of Pakistan on Kashmir, Chou En-lai declined the invitation. So despite these ideological differences, divergence in policy approaches, China and Pakistan retained that empathy and understanding towards each other, even in the initial phase. So this is very important. They were assessing each other, they were judging each other, and at the same time, trying to build that trust which is required, for the type of relationship which we have today. Then comes 1959, the Tibet uprising, Dalai Lama fleeing to India, and Chou En-lai going to Delhi, sitting with Nehru for long sessions to finalize the border treaty. But India's intransigence, and that did not work out. So China was frustrated. And then, it culminated into the 1962 border clash between the two. So that was a seminal event. That is the time when Pakistan also changes course. If you read Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's statement in the National Assembly of 1962, where he's clearly pointing out the importance of China, the importance of relations, Pakistan's relations with China. So that was the time that we sort of shifted towards China. And then comes the 65 war, of course, when we had extensive, military assistance from China, an ultimatum to India, and then in 1966. But before, I forgot that the turning point after 62 war was, as has been mentioned earlier also, this border treaty which we signed. China was facing problems not only with India but some other neighboring countries also to conclude these border agreements. But Pakistan came forward and we negotiated a treaty and signed it in 1963. And in 1964, Pakistan helped in lifting the air blockade of China when PIA was the first non-communist airline. And this was used by Chinese officials, Chinese personnel, even the Chinese mail was transported through PIA. So, of course, then comes 65 war, which I have already alluded to. And 1966, both countries take this important and strategic decision to build this Karakoram Highway. I want to mention that after this 66 decision to build this Karakoram Highway, then comes a phase where China decides to give quite substantial amount of economic assistance to Pakistan. I think the cumulative figure is about $400 million at that point in time, when China was a poor country and China was facing this the challenge of cultural revolution. Yet China gave this assistance, this substantial economic assistance to Pakistan, which would run into billions of dollars today. And of course, they were also giving us greatest military equipment. We have then, in 1968, another event happened. Our foreign minister, I think HUSSAIN, goes to China and gives a mango gift of mangoes, Pakistani mangoes, to Chairman Mao Zedong. The Chinese had not seen the mangoes. So it was a very special item for them. So Mao Zedong distributed them amongst Communist Party's cadres, the Communist Party's youth league. And then a frenzy campaign was started all over China to make replicas of that mango and the mango platters. And, that was kind of we talk of people-to-people connectivity and people's diplomacy. I think that was an extremely good initiative and thought-through initiative, which was taken by Pakistan, which is remembered in China even today. Then came 71 war. And before that, Kissinger's visit, which Honorable Senator Moshid Hussain has referred to. And Chou Enlai told Kissinger not to forget the bridge which has brought them together, which has brought United States and China together. And he was referring to Pakistan. So again and again, Chinese wisdom and Chinese sagacity is reflected in these pronouncements and their policy actions. Then we have, of course, 1971 crisis. And mind you, I want to share this fact also with you, that sometimes criticism is made of China not doing much during the 71 crisis to help Pakistan. But I think these are misplaced notions. In April 1971, the crisis in East Pakistan started in March 71. In April 71, China warned Pakistan of an Indian attack on Pakistan. Look at how keenly they were watching the developments in East Pakistan at that time. We were not aware. Of course, we made a mess out of that crisis subsequently. But look at our friends. They were watching the developments and they forewarned us in April 1971 that there can be an Indian attack on Pakistan. And then China did not do much because Lin Biao had tried to stage a coup in China. And he died while freeing. So that was a very, very big event in China. Chairman Mao Zedong was facing this internal challenge. And then at that time, after 69, Sino-Soviet border clashes, Soviet Union at that time had deployed about 40 plus armored divisions on northeastern border with China. So China was facing these pressures also. And of course, our junta, military junta at that point in time was not sure how to handle the crisis. So the skeptics and the critics who question China's sincerity and friendship at the time of 71 crisis, I think need to be apprised of these facts also. And then in 71 crisis, you just have to go back to the record of United Nations of how China was engaged in fierce clashes with the Soviet Union, which was exercising its veto on every resolution for a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And then comes the veto, the first veto which China exercised on the question of Bangladesh admission into the United Nations. Now we come to the present. I think, as I said earlier, there was this empathy, there was this goodwill, there was this willingness to understand each other. And after 1962 war, Chinese leadership realized that what kind of problems Pakistan faces vis-a-vis India, our security compulsions. So they had a better appreciation of Pakistan's point of view. And then we moved on. And so 60s and 70s were crucial decades as far as Pakistan-China relations and its evolution is concerned. Trust kept on building. And right now, I think the underlying factor which gels in this relationship, apart from regional compulsions, geostrategic considerations, is this important factor of mutual support and mutual trust. We can talk a lot about India-China relations, Pakistan-China relations, but I think I will not go into too much detail now. We have this history of 70s and 80s whereby a new shift altogether took place in Pakistan's relationship with China. We have today a strategic partnership which is based on a very solid foundation, and the leadership of the two countries and the people of two countries have invested in this relationship. And this is now of regional and global implication. This relationship has acquired even greater importance because of the rapid changes which are taking place in our region and globally. India is, of course, has been projected as a net security provider in our region by the United States, and USA itself is engaged in a fierce, battle to prevent the rise of China. I think they are trying to reverse their own decline rather than prevent the rise of China, because that is no longer possible. That is the reality, and that is established fact, historical fact. This is historical phenomena, countries rise and countries decline. So this is time for China to rise. But we are in this crossfire, and there are attempts being made to sort of inject doubts and apprehensions in our minds about this debt trap and China sort of, having some other ulterior motives or ulterior ambitions. I think this is a fallacy. China, if China started supporting us economically in 70s, when it helped Pakistan to go onto the path of self-reliance through the construction of this heavy mechanical complex, Cambrian and nautical complex, and starting this cooperation in the nuclear field, civilian nuclear field. So this was an attempt by China to put Pakistan on the path of self-reliance and build our capacity. Cpac is also meant to build Pakistan's capacity, economic strength, so that we move on to the road of self-reliance. This needs to be realized. This needs to be understood. We can take full advantage of the learning curve on which we find today being a part of this venture, which is Cpac. We can learn a lot, and I think Cpac is a rare window of opportunity for Pakistan in terms of our geoeconomics, in terms of our becoming a transit hub, an energy hub, a trade hub in the region, with an additional platform available in the form of Shanghai Cooperation Organization to us. So the focus is on this region. And after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, big powers will come and try to fill up this vacuum. And China is next door. China is trusted by Afghans. China is trusted by Pakistan. So it, along with Russia, will play an important role within the framework of SCO, as well as within the framework of regional permutations and regional alliances, or realignments rather, which are taking place. So we should not discount this factor. that China's influence in our region will grow, notwithstanding the incursions being attempted by this combine of United States and India. So, and then in the context of, I mean, I will just conclude in 2 minutes by saying that when has China failed us? I want to ask. Be it your problems in multilateral fora, FATF, NSG, UN Security Council expansion, listing issues, human rights, China is there to help you. I know it personally how China has helped us, for example, in FATF. Secondly, our nuclear cooperation, our defense cooperation, our strategic cooperation, our cooperation in the field of space, our cooperation in the field of economy, our cooperation in the field of trade, our cooperation in the field of education, science and technology, agriculture now with the second phase coming up. Which area is there where you do not find China's signature? So it is a good sign for us that a major power like China, the second largest economy, which is going to overtake by all counts United States in a matter of a decade, is there as a friend, as a reliable partner to help us find our own independent course of self-reliance. We can learn a lot. We are a high energy nation. We have potential. God has given us resources. God has given us a geography, unique geography, which needs to be utilized, optimally utilized to really become, become a powerful player in this region. So China is helping us and we should welcome that. I am confident that this trajectory, which is an outcome of 70 years of relentless work, dedication, sincerity, and goodwill, will continue on its upward trajectory, will continue its upward path. There is no going back. It is a strategic imperative for both Pakistan and China. We can't go back. And I feel so strongly about it, and I can say it very candidly, it will be suicidal if ever we think in terms of, sort of reviewing or reconsidering the importance of this relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Saab. I think that's a very, very enlightening session. Before, sir, we move on to other questions, and I will take the liberty of being the moderator, and I might ask a question from my side. But I think we have a couple of very interesting comments / questions around the same theme. And so one question is from Salahuddin Chaudhary Saab. And Salahuddin Saab has said that he has talked about Pak-China friendship, but he said, what about the climate challenges? And have we looked at green collaboration? And I think Wasim Sajjad Saab also kind of refers to the same theme. And he's talking about environmental challenges between Pakistan and China. So if our hosts agree, I would like to request Salahuddin Saab. Salahuddin Saab, would you like to take the mic and maybe say a few words and elaborate a little bit on this theme? And then we can request Ambassador Saab to maybe give a few comments on that.
Sure, KHAWAR Saab, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well, sir.
Okay, good. Well, you see, everybody talks about Pak-China relationship as very deep-rooted, higher than Himalayas and deeper than the Blue Ocean, etc., etc. And NAGHMANA describes those are no more cliches. But of course, there are many countries, especially in the West, who will say they are cliches. Okay, never mind that. But I have been thinking over the last couple of months regarding the climate challenge as the biggest challenge the world is going to face. I've been, watching documentaries. I've been hearing and seeing, Attenborough, the very famous naturist from Great Britain. And I find in the climate action, if we don't take as of now, the challenges are going to become bigger and bigger and bigger and can pose the biggest problem for the entire humanity of the world. In this regard, if I may just say or mention that there have been a couple of things where we feel that we are not very deeply concerned regarding the pollution or the environment problems. Like we have talked about what's called the emissions, carbon dioxide, and also a couple of other things, including the brick kiln factories which produce smog, etc., which are causing problems every year. And I'm already writing an article on that. And smog can create a biggest problem for Pakistan, couple of cities at least. Okay, that's one. Another thing is methane gas. In our livestock, we have probably not looked into it at all. While methane gas can be a biggest problem, even bigger than the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, because the methane gas helps, global warming, and it's increasing, year after year. And by 2025, and also 2030 or 2040, the level of methane emission was going to create the global warming by 2.2%, which is 2.2 degrees, and that's really is going to be very, very difficult, and we have to address it right now. Now, you see, at one time, China was described to be one of the most polluted countries in the world, say about 20, 30 years ago. And Pakistan is also described as one of the 6 bottommost countries facing climate challenge. So if we keep in view these two issues, my wonder is whether the relationship, the partnership with China, we can both try and make a joint effort in this particular regard, do a climate action, and see whether we can decrease the problem to a large extent. So this is my thinking, my comments, and my question. I'll be very happy if anybody can give a reply, especially Masood Khalid. Thank you.
Masood Saab, please.
May I? Ambassador Chaudhary has raised a very important point. And China has been, yes, contributing quite a lot to pollution. But in the wake of recent moves to control this problem, China has come up with a climate action plan. And Chinese are very good in that. They define their plan, they define a roadmap, and then they fix targets. And most of the time they achieve them. So they are working on it. They have global commitments as far as emissions are concerned. Now, as regards Pakistan-China cooperation, first of all, I would like to say that we are also now trying to diversify our energy mix. We are going towards hydel. We are going towards solar and wind power. In the initial stage, when Cpac was launched, we went for a few coal-based power plants, because after discussions, it was established that it will be easier and quicker to have these plants operational rather than, for example, the hydro plants. So it was decided to go for these coal-based plants. And as I understand, the government of Pakistan has now decided not to have more coal-based power plants. So that is number one. Number two is that this government of Prime Minister Imran Khan is giving quite a bit of attention to this problem of, ecology and climate change. And this project of 100 billion trees is a manifestation of that desire and objective. What can we do with China? Our region is affected by this climate change, and Pakistan will also face a lot of challenges in future. Yes, we should give more focus and more attention to this problem. But as far as bilateral cooperation is concerned, I can share with you that while China is working very fast on tackling with this issue of climate change internally and domestically, it is also collaborating with other countries, including developed ones like Sweden and Germany, to acquire technologies, to acquire know-how and apply them locally. Now, they would be very happy to work with Pakistan and help Pakistan in dealing with this incoming challenge. When I was there, we introduced a very big company of China in the private sector, which is working on de-desertification of China, particularly in Inner Mongolia region. And they have done a wonderful job. That company was introduced to the government of Pakistan. I am not aware of the current status, what has been done, but China, I have seen myself how they have, for example, changed the landscape of Karamai city in Xinjiang, which is nothing but a desert. Now it's an oasis. So China is working very hard, and I think we need to intensify our collaboration, and China will be more than happy to come forward and to help us with this green economic corridor and green economy ventures. And another important, I think, piece of information is that the gentleman who heads Pakistan-China Friendship Association is a retired ambassador, a very senior ambassador, and a very senior UN official, Chinese official, Ambassador Shah, who is involved in this effort of promoting green economy. So his resource can also be utilized, and of course, in the non-governmental channel as well as through governmental channel. And maybe Ambassador NAGHMANA can also give her input, because she has come back recently, and she could also join in this as to what more can be done with China in this particular area.
Thank you, Masood Khalid. Thank you very much for your elaboration. There's one point, if I'm allowed to say so. There's one point which you mentioned yourself, which I couldn't mention earlier in my verbal comments, was regarding the coal-triggered energy production. You said it, and I have learned it for probably the first time. The government is seriously thinking in putting a plug on further production on coal-based energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Salahuddin Saab.
No, but you see, one small point.
Ji.
We ignored third coal deposits for decades, while India is exploiting the same kind of lignite coal for energy production. So the choice was, should we continue to do that or exploit that resource to meet Pakistan's energy shortfall? As I understand, now the government of Pakistan has decided no more coal-based power plants, but I think DAUD Saab would know it better. What is the policy?
Thank you, Mr. Saab. So what I'll do is that there are a couple of very interesting questions in the chat box, and there is one hand raised that I can see. So what I'll do is I'll ask Imran Sardar Saab to take the mic and very briefly ask this question. And then I will take that question and I will kind of also tell you what some of the other interesting questions are. And I'll combine that. And I would request Khalid Saab, probably Madam NAGHMANA is having some technical issues, and Ambassador Nadeem Riyaz Saab, if he wants to take any question, then after that we can conclude. So Imran Saab, very briefly, if you can introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Khawar Saab. I'm Imran Sudha from the Institute of Regional Studies. Any panelist can answer my question. It's been 70 years to our relationship with China, and by and large, we have been talking about what China has provided us in terms of diplomatic, financial, and military support. Pakistan's list of offers to China is minimal. I know Pakistan is a small country with limited resources, but despite this fact, there had been many areas in which Pakistan could lead. For instance, Chinese language. We can have massive Chinese language program all over the country, free of cost. And secondly, our relationship with Muslim countries. I think this was the area in which we could offer much to China. But the reverse is happening. Now China is taking us to the Muslim world. So in this scenario, how can we proactively play a role in making the bilateral relations literally bilateral? Thank you.
Thank you, Imran Sahab. I think it's a very interesting question. And I think your question is that are we holding our end of the deal? Are we adding significant value to the relationship with China? And is it really a bilateral relationship? I think that's a remarkable question. Thank you. There are two other questions which are very interesting. So one question is from, and my apologies that I cannot take all the questions, but I think two questions are very interesting. One question is from Humaira Iqbal, and she's saying that we have talked about China supporting Pakistan, but Pakistan still struggling and becoming self-reliant with limited capacity. Do you think it can serve economic core interest of China and its own as well? And I think if I understood her correctly, she's referring to Pakistan's potential to reap the benefit that China is offering through the China-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement, through BRI and Cpac financing, through just by the virtue of being in the neighborhood of a giant economic powerhouse. So are we ready to take benefit of this relationship? So one question is from Imran Saab, one from Humaira, and the third question is from Tabinda Siddiqui. And she's saying that historically, Pakistan has remained part of Western alliance despite having good relations with China. In an era of new Cold War, as highlighted by Senator Moshid Hussain, do our panelists see any prospect of American pressure on Pakistan to side, just to refer to the post 9/11 situation? In case of any such situation, what Pakistan's course of action should be? And I think Moshid Saab also referred to this looming Cold War of the 21st century. And if that happens, and if Pakistan is put in a tight spot, which way would it side and would it complicate relationship? So I think one is about maintaining this neutrality or taking one side between US and China. The other is our own ability to take benefit. And then Imran Saab's question in the beginning, that are we adding due value in this relationship? So I combine all the three questions, and I'll request if Ambassador Nadeem Riaz Saab want to comment on it, or if Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab wants to comment on it, or if both of you can do it. I think that would be remarkable. Thank you. Masood Saab?
Masood Khalid, would you like to first start, and then I can
नहीं आप कीजिए, मैं काफी बोला हूँ. आप नदीम आप कीजिए please.
Okay. I would take the last question regarding the pressure on Pakistan. Well, I mean, isn't there a pressure on Pakistan right now? I mean, aren't the Americans also sending these little veiled messages regarding collaboration and cooperation which Pakistan has with China? Now, the basic thing is that I think in international relations, and especially if you have a relationship like we have with China, it will be suicidal, like Ambassador Masood Khan said, to think that you could actually do away with China. Because if you look at it, it's a country which is in your immediate neighborhood. It's a country which has supported you. You have a good economic relationship. You have the Cpac, militarily. You have a strong relationship going. Politically, the relationship is strong. So I personally feel that this is where the job of diplomats come in. It is where you do the balancing act. It is where you actually strengthen the relationship with one country and don't go to a zero-sum game with the other. So I personally feel that regardless of any pressure, which is basically put on Pakistan, you also have to keep in mind about the strong relationship which the United States has with India, their larger interest in the South China Seas, their trade war with China. So I personally feel that, like, it's not like, I don't think it will be a situation like the one it was in the 50s and the 60s with the era of Cold War. Like, you would be a part of NATO or you would be a part of the Warsaw Pact. I think it would be something more fluid. You will definitely have pressure, and you definitely will have countries supporting one side or the other. But I think that the conduct of Pakistan foreign policy, and we have enough accomplished diplomats to ensure that we can do a balancing act. This is something which I was also in talks with one of the American think tanks a few days ago, and that was precisely the question which was asked: would you take sides? Because I think that it's not a matter of taking sides. In international relations, it's a matter of safeguarding your own national interest. And I think safeguarding our national interest is with a reliable partner, with a partner which has supported us through thick and thin, rather than to actually try to change horses in midstream and try to go towards a partner with which we have been the most allied and being the most sanctioned ally. So I think it's really a balance which is going to take place in future. Ambassador Masood would like to add something to it.
I think you have basically answered what I had in mind. We have to see the history of relationship with both. I fully agree that it's not a zero-sum game, and it is neither is it one size fits all. You see, you have to see what is in your national interest. If we look at US-Pakistan relations over the last 40 years or 50 years, sorry to say this, that we do not find much satisfaction there. We have been dished. And now with this projection of India and this bolstering of India, even on Kashmir issue, which is the main impediment between Pakistan and India, United States throughout this 60 or 70 years has never, ever supported Pakistan. Even when the time was there, we were asked to go for, a joint defense pact between India and Pakistan in 60s. So my point is that you have to compare the history of relationship between Pakistan and the United States and between Pakistan and China and make your own conclusion. As Ambassador Nadeem has mentioned, China has been there all along. They have supported us. They are supporting us now, not only economically, strategically, militarily, diplomatically, politically. So imagine if we come under pressure, and I'm sure we will not come under pressure because this is too big a price to pay. But if hypothetically, if we come under pressure and if we waver, you think there'll be another player or another major actor like our Western neighbor to help us out? That means we will be inflicting, it will be a self-inflicted wound. We'll be shooting ourselves in the foot. So we have to be very clear. All our main sort of sources of technology, futuristic planning, economic dividends, somehow they are tied up with China. Now, there was another question. Has Ambassador NAGHMANA left? And has Senator MUSHAHID also left? Because
the Senator Saab has left and Madam NAGHMANA was here, but I think there is some technical glitch. So
I can just briefly try to respond to some other questions. Chinese language program, no two opinions. I think we have made quite a bit of progress. If you see, 6 or 7 years ago, nobody talked about Chinese language except the Namal. Now we have so many institutions all across Pakistan, all across country, which are imparting Chinese language. And these Confucius institutes are also helping. Now our own universities are, through collaborative arrangements, they are. And when I went to China in 2013, I can tell you, there were only 4 universities which were teaching Urdu. And there were Pakistan study centers in these 4 universities. When I left, there were about 10 or 11 universities which were doing the same job. And I think maybe the number has grown further. So this is the type of change which is taking place. And I think I agree that this kind of momentum should be sustained. We need to have more people-to-people connectivity. About relations with Muslim countries, although Pakistan is a small country, but China values its partnership with Pakistan. China values Pakistan's support on its core interest of Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, human rights, Taiwan, South China Sea. These are very important issues of sovereignty for China, on which China does not brook any compromise. And it finds that Pakistan is always there to support China. So China values this support and partnership with Pakistan and its support in multilateral forum. Now, relations with Muslim countries, yes, China is a very big country. China has its own bilateral cooperation, bilateral relations with Muslim countries. For example, Saudi Arabia is one of the largest supplier of oil to China, Iraq, UAE, and others, Kuwait. So they have their own, bilateral relations with these countries. But they also know that Pakistan is important in the context of Islamic countries, OIC. Pakistan is a nuclear power. Pakistan is respected in OIC. And Pakistan's advice is also solicited from time to time on dealing with Muslim countries. And a couple of years ago, when there was a problem China faced on account of, a Xinjiang issue, Pakistan was also there to help China in the context of OIC. So this is a two-way traffic. It is not that we are the ones which are getting everything from China and we do not respond back in kind. Now, Pakistan's, there was a question of, so Pakistan maintaining neutrality. Well, we have to decide which is in our national interest, as Ambassador Riaz said. And to my mind, national interest demands that Pakistan should continue to strengthen its cooperation and relationship with China, because that is kind of a, it is not a transient or a transactional relationship. It will go on. There was a question about Pakistan's absorptive capacity. Yes, we have serious capacity issues. And Cpac has also amplified those gaps and those loopholes. But what is China doing? China is giving us a large number of scholarships to our students, a very big number. Why is China doing that? China is offering us training programs where our experts, officials, planners, students are going to China on regular basis. Why is China doing that? Why is China setting up vocational institutions, vocational institutes here? Why is China doing that? Or why is China helping us economically, financially, to build our capacity through Cpac? It is doing it to build our capacity so that Pakistan stands on its own feet, so that Pakistan moves onto the road of self-reliance. This is also in accordance and in consonance with our national dignity and self-respect, that Pakistan should take advantage of this road, of this avenue of Cpac, and acquire broaden its industrial and scientific base, knowledge base, so that we move on into the next century, or really become an important player in this region in terms of geoeconomics.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. I do see a hand raised, but I think we are running out of time and we'll have to conclude. But thank you so much for a very enlightening session, very enlightening comments. We started off with Madam NAGHMANA, who gave us a very rich history of Pak-China relationship. We had Hassan Daud Saab, who showed us the intricate portfolio of Cpac projects, the industrial cooperation, the agriculture cooperation, the $29 billion that has come in already, and the pipeline of another $20 billion, which is awaiting completion. We then had Senator Moshid Hussain Saab, who, and I really liked his theme, that the core interest between Pakistan and China is what has kept these two countries together and what will keep these two countries together. And then Ambassador Masood Saab actually summed it all up and gave us a very concise narrative of what makes this a real strategic relationship. I really liked some of the questions. Ambassador Nadeem Saab was optimistic, and I agree that even with this looming Cold War, we are never going to go back to 1960s. It's never going to be NATO versus Warsaw. If at all, it's going to be much more subtle. And I think at the end, Ambassador Masood Saab has once again laid us an option for us, that even if we come across such a situation, I think we need to look at this prism, at this problem, at this challenge with the sole focus of what is in our national interest. And if we keep that in mind, I think it will help us go in the right direction. With this, I would like to thank my esteemed panelists. I would like to thank all the participants who sat through the 2 hours and enjoyed the discussion, raised questions.